You've run the numbers. Every relationship, every situationship, every almost but not quite connection you've ever had, every person who said they loved you, then showed you something different, something that didn't look like love at all. You laid all of those out, the names, the timelines, the outcomes, and you did what any smart, analytical, self-aware woman would do. You looked for a common denominator, and what you found was you. You said, I'm the one who keeps showing up here. I'm the one who keeps choosing the wrong partners. I'm the one who keeps ending up in this same place. So the logic in all of that says, I must be the variable. I must be the problem. Something about the way that I love, the way I choose, the way that I am must be the reason this keeps not working for me, why we can't communicate well, why I keep getting the short end of the stick. So what did you do? You took a step back. You did more calculations. Then you start to ask yourself, what's wrong with me? What do I need to fix? Because clearly, I'm the problem. It sounds like self-awareness, sis. It sounds like accountability. It sounds like you've been doing a lot of hard self-reflection and work. But today, I want to offer you a different perspective, a different way of looking at this. Perhaps you shouldn't assume you're the common denominator. Perhaps you don't ask what's wrong with me and what do I need to fix. There is a completely different question that will get you to the other side of this, sis. And that question is, what if you were never a problem? Hi, I'm Dr. Tiff, your relationship transformation coach. I've spent the past 20 years working with high-achieving women just like you who are crushing it in every area of their lives, everywhere except their relationships. And look, I get it. Finding the one ain't easy, and relationships are hard. But you know what's even harder? Cycling through the bad ones, or worse, staying in relationships when you already know they're not a good fit. You want a relationship of ease, uncomplicated, someone to love you down, but instead you've been suffering through bad dates, sexual incompatibility, and someone who might be good for somebody, but not for you. And if we're really being honest, you know that deep down, the work that really needs to be done starts and ends with you. If you're done wasting time in dead-end relationships and sick of looking for, chasing after, or trying to convince somebody to be the one, and you're ready to become the one, then baby, you're in the right place. So prop your feet and let's clink glasses, because I'm giving you the tea and the tips to fix your relationships. Let's go. Welcome back to Fix Your Relationships. I am your host, Dr. Tiffany Davis Henry. You can call me Dr. Tiff. If you have been with us over these past several weeks, you have been on an epic journey. We talked about getting out of your own way in episode 94. We talked about receiving love without the guilt in episode 95, doing the work for the right reason in 96, what the woman on the other side of this work looks like in episode 97. And last week, episode 98, we went over the calibration, the container, Jeremiah 1:5, and the fact that God is not confused about you, sis. The 90s playlist is coming together. I'm actually right now putting together a 90s playlist in Spotify. Probably by the time you hear this episode, it'll already be out. If you don't know where to start, if you want to send somebody on a journey, if you have a good sis that needs to hear all the episodes, I'm going to encourage you to send them over to Spotify and look for the FYR 90s playlist, the Fix Your Relationships 90s playlist. My gosh, it should be there by the time you hear this episode. And I'll put a link in the show notes as soon as it's available, because it is, my gosh, it's an epic ride. I love what we've been doing here these past couple of weeks. If you haven't heard 98 though, if you haven't heard that God is not confused about you, you can start anywhere, but that one, baby, go back and listen to that. It's one of the most important things I feel like I've ever done on the podcast. One of my favorite episodes. I have a few favorites over the last year. That's one of them. Episode 83 is another one of my favorites. You guys know you are the one. I love that episode as well. So we're putting all of that into a playlist. So go to Spotify, look for the Fix Your Relationships 90s playlist, or you can just go right back into your Apple Podcast and just start at 92 and work your way through. Okay. Today's episode though, picks up exactly where episode 98 left off, because last week we established that the rooms and the relationships that couldn't hold you were not exposing a deficiency in you. They were revealing a deficiency in themselves. Your calibration was never the problem. The container was the problem. But I know what some of you are still sitting with, because I've sat with enough women in enough rooms in enough moments to know that even after hearing all of that, everything that we went through on last week, even after receiving the truth that it's not you, that it was a container, and feeling all of that land, there is still a tiny voice underneath all of it that says, I am the common denominator, Dr. Tiff. It's me. I'm the one that's showing up in each and every one of these rooms, so it's gotta be me. And today, that's exactly what we're addressing, okay? We're going to take it to the head, okay? We're going to address it. Here's what's happened. You're intelligent. You're analytical. You're the kind of woman who doesn't just experience things. You study them. You reflect on them. You ask the hard questions. And so at some point, after enough relationships have ended, after enough disappointments stacked up, you did what made common sense. You ran the numbers. And the numbers said the one constant in all of these situations is you. Therefore, you are the cause. You are the problem. You are the reason these things aren't working out. That's a logical conclusion. It's reasonable. It's also one of the most damaging conclusions a woman like you can draw about yourself, because those calculations, that math, okay, doesn't take into account what you were actually bringing into every single one of those relationships. Yes, the numbers might have said you came into that relationship damaged and that's why it didn't work out. You came in with all the dysfunction, so of course it wasn't going to last. You had a few things you needed to work on, and yes, you took that into account too. But what the math forgot was this. You came into that relationship with a standard, with a capacity for real love, a willingness to keep showing up even after being disappointed, a refusal, even when you didn't even have the language for it, a refusal to accept less than what you knew in your spirit you were made for. That is not the profile of a woman who is a problem. That's the profile of a woman who's been raising the bar in every room she's walked into and watching people come to the realization that they didn't have the capacity to clear it. I want to offer you a reframe today, not to let you off the hook. Growth is still the work. We are still doing that. But this reframe is meant to give you an accurate read on what's actually happening here. Perhaps you're not falling for the same type of person. You may have done everything the books told you to do, gone to the therapy, raised your standards, made different choices, done the work, and still somehow ended up in the same emotional place, still sitting alone with the question, still wondering what you're doing wrong, circling back to the same calculation. I must be the problem. That is not evidence that the calculation is right. That's evidence of how exhausting it is to keep trying in a world that hasn't yet caught up to what you carry. You have been following the rules, jumping through all the hoops, doing everything a self-aware, growth-oriented therapy having woman is supposed to do, and the outcome keeps feeling the same. So you do what any logical person does. You look for the common variable and you land it on yourself. But sis, the variable was never you. Here is what I want you to sit with instead. The fact that you keep arriving at the same emotional place is not proof that something is permanently wrong with you. It's proof that you have not yet fully granted yourself permission to require what you actually deserve. That is a very different thing. A woman who doesn't know better keeps choosing what's familiar, but a woman who has done the work, who knows better, who has read every book and sat in every session and still ends up here, she is not choosing wrong. She's standing at the edge of a permission she hasn't fully given herself yet. You are not the variable. You are on the edge of something you haven't yet allowed yourself to fully claim. And here's what I need you to hear. The fact that you keep showing up, that you keep trying, keep opening up, keep believing that real love is possible even after every disappointment, that is not weakness. That is not evidence that something's wrong with you. That is one of the most extraordinary things about you. Most people, after being hurt hurt enough times. They shut down. They build walls. They decide the dream isn't worth the risk. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. So they find themselves settling for something more manageable and call it wisdom. I've learned. I don't need. I don't deserve. This is my speed. I can't do no more than this. You didn't do that. You kept going, not because you're naive, not because you're a glutton for punishment, but because something in you, something God placed on the inside of you, knows that what he designed you for is real, and it refuses to let you quit. Isaiah 61:3 says, he came to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Beauty, honey, for ashes. I need you to sit with those 3 words for a second. Ashes are what's left after something burns. You know exactly what your ashes look like. The relationship that ended right when you thought things were finally going to be different. The one that cost you more than you're willing to say out loud because you can't deal with the judgment. The calculations you keep mulling over in the middle of the night. Those are your ashes. And God is not standing over them shaking his head. He's working with them, because here's what I know to be true and what I've watched happen in the lives of women who finally stopped running from their own story. Those relationships were not just removing the wrong things from your life. They were building something inside of you. Every one of them was adding a layer of discernment, of clarity, of capacity you're going to need for the love he's been building for you. You needed to know what it felt like to be in the wrong container so you could recognize the right one when it finally came along. You needed to feel the weight of what you were settling for so you would finally stop settling. You needed to go through it, all of it, to become the woman who has the capacity to hold what God actually has for her. The ashes were not wasted. He was making a crown out of them, sis. And I want to be careful here because this reframe is not a bypass. I'm not standing here telling you that everything has been everybody else's fault and you have nothing to look at. The work we all need to do is real. The growth is absolutely necessary. And for most of the women listening, you are already doing this work. You've been doing this work, the therapy, the journaling, the podcast. Man, you show up here every week. I'm asking you to write stuff down, not for me, but for you. You're having honest conversations with yourself at 2:00 in the morning when you can't sleep and you know that God is tugging at you. That's the real work. It all matters. It all counts. But here's a distinction I need you to make. There is a difference between doing the work because you believe something is fundamentally wrong with you and you need to fix it, and doing the work because you are a woman who takes her own growth seriously and is committed to becoming the fullest version of who God made her to be. The first kind of work is driven by shame, and work driven by shame will keep sending you back to the same question: what's wrong with me? The second kind of work is driven by identity, and work driven by identity asks a completely different question. And that question is, who am I becoming? And are my actions and choices aligned with her, with that girl? That shift from what's wrong with me to who am I becoming, it is not small. That is the entire difference between a woman who spends her life trying to be less of a problem and a woman who spends her life stepping into more of who she actually is. You have been asking the wrong question, not because you're not smart, not because you're not self-aware, but because you were operating from a conclusion, a miscalculation that you are the common denominator. So you must be the problem. And you accepted it as fact before you examined whether the premise was even true. The premise was not true. You are not the problem. You are the standard waiting for something worthy of you to finally rise to meet it. Hey babes, taking a quick break to talk to you about the One Within 30-Day Reset, my one-of-a-kind guided journaling experience. If you are someone who is determined to improve your relationships in 2026, but also want to make sure that you don't neglect yourself in the process, I'd love to see you inside this program. I designed the One Within 30-Day Reset for women just like you, strong, hyper-independent, crushing it at work, living your dreams. But if we're really being honest, things are a little lacking in the love department. You know that there's probably some self-work that you need to do. Maybe you've been putting it off because you're not quite sure where to start. Well, that's where the One Within steps in. If you can spare just 5 to 10 minutes a day, I'll help you identify the patterns and triggers holding you back in your relationships, help you to set better boundaries and end the cycles of self-sabotage and missed red flags. I'll help you embrace the personal growth strategies necessary to stop making the same mistakes over and over again, and to start calling in that love we both know you deserve. And remember, this is a guided experience. I'm not just handing out blank sheets of paper and telling you to scribble your hopes and dreams. Each day, I'm providing you with thought-provoking prompts designed to really tap into what's kept you feeling stuck in your relationships. In addition, you're going to get daily video messages from me, get full access to our private community, group coaching calls, bonuses, and so much more. If you're ready to sign up or just need more information, head on over to drtiffanyhenry.com/theonewithin. Now back to the show. Okay, guys, journals out. It is that time. We have our 3 journal questions for the week. If you are curious as to why we do journal questions every week, why I have you writing these things down, making it plain, I want to encourage you again to go to that 90s playlist that we created in Spotify. Look for episode 92. That's where you're going to get the answer for why we do this work. Some people feel like it's silly. Like, why do I have to write these things down? I'll just listen. I won't put it on paper. We write it down and we make it plain over here. That's what we're doing on this podcast. So go back if you are in the midst of that 90s playlist, or if you just want to go straight to the episode. It's episode 94. Get out of your own way, the perfectionist guide to doing the inner work. I ain't calling you a perfectionist, but you know who you are. Okay. You know the things that you know, sis, Go back and listen to that episode if you're curious why journaling is such an important part of the things that we do here on Fix Your Relationships. Let me tell you something. If you were to ask me, I'm not necessarily a quote unquote journal girly, but the results are undeniable. When we write things down, we make it plain. Go back and listen to episode 94 and then come back and holler at your girl. Okay. In the meantime, in between time, we're going to get back to these questions for the week. Question number 1, when did you first arrive at the conclusion that you were the common denominator? Was it after a specific relationship ended? Something someone said to you? A moment of quiet reflection where you started doing the math and it all just started to come back to you? I want you to write about that. When did you start to conclude that you were the problem, you were the common denominator, and examine whether the person that told you this or the circumstance that handed you this conclusion actually, if that person or circumstance or situation or job or family member actually had the authority to make that conclusion about you. If that person had the authority to tell you who you were and who you weren't, that you were the reason why all of these things weren't coming together. Let me know, or let yourself know. Did that person, did that situation, did that circumstance have the authority to declare that over you? That's question number 1. Question number 2, I want you to think about all the work that you've done, all of it, the therapy that you've gone through, the coaching, the books that you've read, the journaling, the changes you've made, the conversations even that you've had with yourself. I want you to write about what it has cost you emotionally to do all of that and still land in that same place. You've done all the things. You put in the effort. You've made the changes. You're thinking you're doing everything right, only to end up feeling the same way, in the same place, defeated, disrespected, lonely. What is it costing you to put all of that effort into the quote unquote problem and still be in the exact same place? I don't want you to dwell in this feeling. You don't have to live there. I just need you to acknowledge it and honor it. You have been working hard, and that deserves to be acknowledged, okay? You've been working hard. Regardless of where you seem to keep ending up, you have been doing the work. Sit in that, okay? And now, question number 3, write these 2 questions. What's wrong with me? And who am I becoming? That's really hard, I think that most of us know that we are not perfect. But when you sit down with a blank piece of paper and ask yourself to identify all the things that are wrong, I know that I'm feeling emotional just thinking about it and tearing up kind of, because I on the one hand, I am a girl's girl. I know I fuss at y'all every week, but I ain't gonna let nobody else fuss at y'all. I'm gonna ride with y'all all the way. I'm going to confront you in private. Okay. But nobody better say nothing about you. And I would say that you were perfect, but we all know we're not, right? What actually is wrong? What needs to be worked on? What needs to be ironed out, fixed? What is it? Let's be honest. And again, this is between you and you. Nobody else has to see this. We can present however we want, but we know underneath it all, we are not perfect. There are things that need to be worked on, kinks that need to be ironed out. What is wrong, okay? And also, who am I becoming? If you need help with who you're becoming, a place to start, a vision of who you are on the other side of all of this, go back and listen to episode 97, From Dusty to Dainty, Embracing God's Plan for Your Love Life. You're going to see who that woman is on the other side of this work. Again, this is in the 90s playlist. I'm going to keep telling y'all about this because this playlist is fire, okay? Everything that you need to know about everything is in this playlist. So go back if you need inspo for who you are becoming. Listen to 97 and then come back to this final journal question for the week. What's wrong with me and who am I becoming? Spend 10 minutes. I want you to really deliberately and intentionally spend about 10 minutes meditating on and reflecting and answering that second question. That one is the important one to me, okay? I want you to know what you're working towards, who she is, who you are becoming, okay? And here's your one small shift for this week. Every time you catch yourself running that common denominator audit, every time you start tallying up the evidence against yourself, I need you to stop and I need you to swap the question, not what's wrong with me, but who am I becoming? We're swapping it out. The shift that I want you to make is to get out of asking yourself, what's wrong with me? I want you to start asking yourself, who am I becoming? The road that I'm on, where is it going? What does she look like on the other side of all of this? One question every time it comes up for the next 7 days, who am I becoming? For those of you who have been here for a while, coming back week after week, doing the journal questions, making the shifts, showing up for yourself every week, even on weeks when nobody was around to see your progress, I really want you to reflect on this. What if it was never you? What if every relationship that didn't work, every room that couldn't hold you, every moment you ended up back at the same painful question, what if none of it was evidence that there was something wrong with you? What if it was all just God turning the ashes into a crown? Isaiah 61:3, beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. That is not just a pretty scripture, sis. That is a description of what he has been doing in you in every relationship that burned to the ground, in every ending that left you in shambles, in every moment you got back up and dusted yourself off and decided to try again anyway. He was not watching you fall apart. He was collecting the ashes, and he has been building something with every single one of them. Your discernment, your clarity, your capacity, your ability to finally recognize what you were never designed to settle for, your readiness, not just hope, for the love that is actually meant for you. You kept showing up. You kept believing. You kept going, even when it cost you, even when it hurt, even when everything in you wanted to stop. That is not the behavior of a woman who is the problem. That is the behavior of a woman who is becoming who God created her to be. You are not the common denominator of everything that went wrong. You are the evidence of everything God has been preparing you for. And the crown, sis, your crown is already in his hand. You guys know that I've been working on this book for quite some time, and it's been born out of 20 years of sitting with women in some of their most vulnerable moments, and says that time is finally here, and next week is going to be the birth of something big. I want you to join me. If you do nothing else, come back next week. This is episode 99, which means next week is episode 100, and we are doing it big. The title of today's episode was, What If You Were Never the Problem? It's going to connect to next week. It's the question, the thesis really for the entire heartbeat of the book. The book itself is anchored in Psalm 139:14. That's going to be an important reference for you next week. I designed the book to take you from naming the lies that you've been telling yourself to actually living in your truth. I cannot wait to share more about the book, more about the impetus for the book, and everything else. I want you to come back here so you have first dibs, so you have the first insights, so you have the tea on everything the book is about. This is a journey I cannot wait to share with you, and I feel incredibly blessed that you guys are on this ride with me. I love you so much. I cannot wait to see you back here next week, because you being back here on next week for episode 100 is going to be so major, so exciting. And so deeply, deeply honoring and I can't wait to see you back here next week. I really can't. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Fix Your Relationships podcast. Thank you for getting me to episode 99. And thank you in advance for showing up for me for episode 100 next week. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao. Hey, babe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. My goal with this podcast is to bless you with information that helps you fix those relationships that are most important to you, but not before you do the self-work needed to make sure that those relationships thrive. If this episode was exactly what you needed, then guess what? Somebody else probably needs it too. So do me and them a favor. Please share this episode with your good girlfriend and let her know about the podcast. And while you're at it, hop on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. This really helps to grow the podcast and puts it right in front of other women who are desperate to work on their relationships and themselves. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to join our community of like-minded women all on a journey to become the one. You can sign up for free at becometheone.myflowdesk.com/email. I know that's a lot, so just go on over to the show notes and click that link there. Thanks again for listening to Fix Your Relationships with Dr. Tiff. I'll see you right back here next week.